think Gregory put a question in the chat as we were going through. I think it was just a sort of general question in terms of what do you think about debugging in production?
Do you want the realistic answer or the correct answer? I'm not going to say that I have never literally gone on SSH'd into a production server, gone into the code in Vim, and modified the output of a variable because there was a demo happening somewhere else. I didn't do that for my current employer, and I did that because the CEO needed me to do that. But that's an anecdote that's not very helpful. I mean, it depends what you mean. Like, what debugging in production shouldn't happen in theory, so you should never have to do that. But like I said, the good thing about Xdebug 3 is it does give you granular control in the configuration to be able to switch it on and off at will. But in production, just the main feature, if you switch on most of those features, you might just about be able to get away with the step debugger. If you switch on garbage collection statistics or profiler, it will just break your machine. So don't do it. Like, your server will just keel over and your app is dead. So from that perspective, I mean, I don't know, debugging directly in production, I still think is I would still say the best way to do that is deploying more logging and then looking through log files, the boring old-fashioned way. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. And then another one from Gregory is about, is it possible to inspect profiler output in PHPStorm? And I think he's sort of mentioning a menu that the tools analyze Xdebug profiler snapshot.
There is, yeah. So I chose to go for the WebGrind way, but if you want to, once you've got cache grind files, JetBrains have actually created a tool that enables you to open up the file. If I go to it, tools, is it in tools? I have seen it recently. It is in there. If you honestly, if you just type in if you just type in the tools that you're using, like if you type in like Xdebug cache grind PHPStorm, you'll find probably a JetBrains article on doing that. There's no difference. It's just it's probably more efficient than the WebGrind one when you're looking at the actual the visualized output.
Cool. Okay. Have we got any other questions? If anyone's got any questions, just come off mute and ask, or you can drop it in the chat.
I asked 2 questions.
I was going to say my work here is done.
But mine are less technical. So one of them was like, what type of agency is J24 Engineering? Because I have never seen an agency. I don't mean to be horrible to agencies that actually bothers to debug. It's generally one and done projects. They crap it out as fast as possible and they ship it off to a customer and then charge them for every iteration.
I've worked for without naming them, even though you won't care or you won't know them. I've worked for a couple of agencies that operate on that premise because it's really the way that most agencies work. They just it is ship the code, don't really care as long as the client shuts up and pays up. Our founder Dan is a developer and he's pretty obsessed with code quality and process and making sure that we have long-term relationships with clients. The bit that's the reason why a lot of this is kind of observable now is particularly, well, apart from the fact that I joined Jump24 to do developer relations, I've known Jump24 has sponsored my meetup for a couple of years. So the reason why you have a lot of visibility, you're hearing about these things, is because we're a very community focused and a community minded agency where we mentor people and we like teaching people and we're involved in our local ecosystem and we send speakers out. Another developer of ours, Chris Miller, is speaking at PHP Leeds next week, I think, and he's speaking on TDD, like a TDD for beginners, because I guess at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do. The thing that's quite handy when it comes to, I mean, it's good for client, it's good for visibility for client work as well. You know, if a client wants to, if a potential client wants to see the kind of work that we put out, I mean, I've just run you through Order, which is a real product, a real open source library that's actually being used in production. We have a hosted version of it. If they have any sort of, you know, if they want to see what our work's like, our work is on display, because you can see it. You can see the way that we've structured our code and how we write our JS and how we write our, and obviously a lot of critical NDAs and stuff like that. You can't do that in normal agencies, so everything's sort of super hidden, and they probably want to hide everything because the code is usually a pile of crap. Ours isn't, because we have quite stringent code reviews, because we won't let it fly if it's just a load of nonsense. So that's what kind of agency we are, and in the PHP world, that as a server-side language that's quite mature now. If you look at the most successful agencies, either in the Symfony or the Laravel ecosystem, you look at Invica or Roav, or in the Laravel world, Spatsy or Titan. They run like their agency. They are agencies, but they're agencies that have lots of open source libraries for PHP. They're passionate about teaching people. That's what we are.
You know, I've just never seen it before, like an agency that has almost a product focus, if you know what I mean. So you've got Order, which is kind of a product. I'd never heard of an agency having a Devrel before.
Yeah, we're sort of.
You might have one. But...
We're sort of. I just had a. Interesting enough, I had a meeting with Matt Stuffer from Titan this afternoon, specifically about dedicated Devrel at agencies. Nobody is. Most agencies on the ground in Birmingham are. I'm going to be a little bit mean, but it is from being someone that is a sort of, you know, a big contributor to our local ecosystem in the Midlands. Most regular agencies don't care or understand or think that there's any benefit from this kind of work or through this kind of outreach, because. And most of them sort of burn through all of the seniors in about 5 years, and then wonder why they can't hire people. So that's the approach that we have, and it's been sort of always going that way, really. I mean, from the start of our director sponsoring local events.
Cheers for that. The other question was, do you know of a company called Walkup? Because I was noticing, like, the focus of your Order app is, it seems to be restaurants. Like, you had a thing about table service, and I spoke to the CEO of that startup a while ago, and I'm sure he mentioned Order. I'm sure he did.
Really?
Yeah. I'd never seen it before, so this is like the first time I've actually seen it, because I assumed it would be spelled Order, not startup.
It was created. It was created in 6 weeks in March, and the director of J24 just sat down with all of the team and said, we need to do something. Sadly, the kind of purpose of Order has been slightly lost in the fact that I guess nobody would have predicted that we'd be here in January and the thing would still be going on and we'd still have been having lockdowns. So the businesses that we're trying to save are gradually going under. Birmingham's independent scene, which I was incredibly proud of, which was absolutely amazing. We've just started losing amazing restaurants and bars, but there's nothing we can do about that. But they sat down, they spec'd it out they spec'd it out as a team and with Linux, Mr. Linux guru Stuart Langridge, who sort of is like, well, we're sort of, most of us are sort of mates with him, and he's kind of big in the Birmingham ecosystem, the local ecosystem, and we just went, why don't we just do something? So we created that, and it was it started off with just Blade templates and having to refresh, and then gradually we got more asynchronous kind of behavior into it. It's a product. It's not sort of like it wasn't designed to take on the world. It was mainly just done because we could. And the switch to remote for us as a tech company was just so easy anyway. With that not being difficult and us being sort of a bit free, we're like, why don't we just do this? So yeah, it's I think a lot of people that we've had feedback that said it was a pointless waste of time, have clearly missed the point of it by a long way, because a lot of them thought that it was trying to take on the likes of Deliveroo and Just Eat, and it's not at all. What it's trying to do is it's trying to give a merchant we have a big street food scene in Birmingham called Digbeth Dining Club, which now does a lot of touring mostly around the north, around sort of like Manchester and Leeds and things like that. Those individual vendors that do street food that have one of those small, begins with Z, the touch thing that's clicked, that's hooked into a PayPal account, so you can do contactless payments. It's aimed at them, where they could actually sort out orders, and it's got all it does is the very basics of you can do a menu, you can create an order. We've never finished table service quite, but I think it's going to be rolled out soon, and it's free, and it will always be free. So it's yours, take it or leave it. So that's kind of a breakdown of the project. But it's also research and development. This is what we do at Jump24 a lot. At the moment, our current research is focused a lot on inertia and trying to hook inertia and TypeScript and React together, trying to wire all those things and learning a lot of lessons. It's very bleeding edge doing those things and quite confusing, but this is part of our kind of R&D, and if there's something useful from it, then we might open source it. That's the way we work.
Thanks, and thanks for the talk as well.
No worries. Hope you enjoyed it. Can you give me the name of the company again?
Walkup.
The name dropped order.
Yeah, so they basically have a product that is solely for table service. They sell to restaurants, and like he was mentioning, he said we don't have any competitors. We have an open source one called Order, and then he just continues to talk about his own product. But I literally wrote down the word order because I kind of take notes when people talk to me. Couldn't find it and went, oh, that's why he's got a business. But his business was really, like, you could see why people would buy it, because restaurant services don't tend to have a great technical team. Having something sort of like a local built system would be terrible, but having a regional or national deployable system would be amazing.
We had sort of big designs on it at first. The fact that it's open source and the fact that someone else can just, if you want to create a local ecosystem with Order for something else, you can just take. Originally, we were going to do things like Heroku, one-click deployments, and Dockerized stuff, so that you could do sort of. Well, it is Dockerized at the moment, but I mean, there's just we are restricted by time, with time constraints. We are still an agency, so obviously we still have to. Our clients are our highest priority, but. So sorry, what was the name of the company?
Walkup.
Walkup. Okay.
Yeah. So,
cool.
I didn't know if I'd been saying it unclearly. Sometimes the Essex comes out, and I feel.
It's just because I keep on forgetting. I'm not writing it down. Yeah, cool. So I mean, that's just like that gives us sort of a brief outline. But I think that doing educational tools and community outreach and stuff and conference talks and things for the tech world is just, by most agencies, they don't understand it, and it costs time and resources, and they're just not interested. And if you do get it, then you get a huge amount of business payback. So I don't really. I mean, I'm from the Devrel world now more than the PHP world, actually. So it's you get there's a lot of people doing some very cool stuff in the community that really sort of drive their businesses forward.
Yeah, no, it wasn't challenging anything that you guys do. I try to understand where people come from, and obviously I'm not from the Devrel world, so it helps me asking you and being able to ask possibly.
It's not. It's outside in the agent outside of product. Devrel is massively kind of is no one really knows about it. It's quite it's really funny. It's really sort of this sort of underground field and discipline that no one really knows about until you get to the big boys, and then all of them have got dedicated Devrel teams. But that's because the reason why people, you're doing as an agency, you're doing your app and you need to integrate an SMS service, and the reason why you go, didn't we see that person do a talk at the thing, and it was Twilio, and suddenly Twilio pops in your head, or Twilio's docs for Python are really, really good integrations. In the background, that's the Devrel team doing that are encouraging you as a developer to go, well, the resources are all there. The API the documentation is absolutely perfect. I mean, I've seen some third-party applications that are multi-million-dollar applications based in San Francisco for Shopify that handle their reordering service, and their APIs docs are wrong. They don't do what they say it does. The behavior of the API is, or this thing doesn't come back when it says it does. All kinds of shit like that. That's where you don't have dedicated Devrel, and you need it. It comes down to developer experience as well. So, like, quite hot on it are things like people like Monzo, or Gymshark, or like companies that are tech companies first and then happen to be a bank. It's that kind of way around of thinking about things.